Hey everyone, just a heads up that this is part 2 of our season finale episode on Frank Ocean's Blonde. If you haven't heard part 1, you'll definitely want to listen to that first. For those of you who've already listened to part 1, you know that this episode is the remaining audio submissions we received from Dissect listeners sharing their thoughts on Blonde. We had over 200 submissions this season, and it's been an incredible experience to listen to them all. For those of you who submitted, I hope you found the experience of writing about an album you love deepen your connection to it. It's something I would encourage you all to do more, not just music, but for anything that you love. That's what Dissect started as, simply an excuse for me to sit down and get closer to one of the things I love most. Doing so truly changed my outlook on the world, and I feel like I'm a better person because of it. Great art is a source of infinite wisdom, but you have to make yourself available to it. It can change your life if only you let it.
The year Blonde was released was the same year I unexpectedly fell in love with one of my best friends. Sad to say, the relationship didn't surpass what we thought was a good idea. Coincidentally, I self-sabotaged myself and sort of pulled a Facebook story scenario. I have to say the album really added value and emotion back to my emotionless state of mind after the blow of losing someone I care for so deeply. Jealousy's a vicious thing. Thank you, Frank Ocean, and thanks, Cole.
My name is Elna from Fairfax, Virginia. The debut of Blonde in itself foreshadowed my own open letter. The end of a terrible summer, the best autumnal frissions, late night drives home from college, a good reason to calmly overthink and then come back. A victory, winning romantic love, releasing out of conflicting mind-body existential things a lot better, acknowledging self-awareness, acceptance, and love. I sang and yelled every lyric and instrumental at the top of my lungs more times than I could ever count. I still do. Thanks for the opportunity, Dissect Podcast. Thanks, Frank Ocean.
Hey, it's Malcolm Moon from New York, and Frank Ocean has entered my personal canon as one of my all-time favorite artists. I think the magic of his work lies in the emotive power of his voice. You feel each lyric, and it creates this warm glow inside your chest. It transcends and takes you to new dimensions. His music brings light to any situation. Also, there's something in his trustworthy eyes that allows you to feel free when you watch him perform. He inspires me to be brave, raw, and vulnerable in my own work. Thanks, Frank.
Hi, Cole. I'm Giovanna from Massachusetts. I love the podcast. So my takeaway as we travel through Blonde this season was that Frank appreciates the people he's loved and the realities he's lived, that he can acknowledge endings. You know, people grow out of that childhood innocence, and sometimes people can't reconcile a relationship, but I think Frank really pushes us to look past any resentment for the end and hopes we can learn to appreciate the opportunity to experience someone else. He's notoriously nostalgic, but Blonde really shows us how bittersweet our childhood really is when we realize that we're the product of the choices we made when we were just kids. And maybe we did know better back then, but that hopefully, in the very end, the feelings deep down are still good.
Tyler, 29, California. I was going through the end of a 5-year relationship and it was falling apart around me. And that's when I first heard the album Blonde. The autumn and winter rains that followed couldn't possibly have been a better backdrop for what has now become a near daily soundtrack to my life. I can't count the amount of tears and smiles that followed, how many times I experienced frisson. My love for this album has only grown, and I thank you for that, Cole. It was an album I didn't know I wanted or needed, but now I can't imagine my life without it. This album has truly changed my life.
Hey, I'm Brendan from Louisville, Kentucky. I know the cliche says not to have idols, but that's really hard when we have Frank Ocean. His entire catalog seems to narrate my life, and even if the lyrics don't apply, the emotions do. It's like what he said about White Ferrari. They're just chords, just melodies, but the feelings they evoke are so powerful. I'm moved to tears almost every time I listen. He's expressive in a way I need to be but can't. He's vulnerable and intentional and raw with his music, and his elusiveness outside of the music somehow makes it feel all the more authentic.
It's Harvey from Guildford, England. For me, Blonde is an album about longing. Frank's longing for the past, the summer, and for the understanding of how these shape future experiences. I see it as a sort of soundtrack for life. There is no mood or situation where you can't play a song off Blonde. They all just fit.
Hey Dissect listeners, this is Carrie Santa Ana from Torrance, California. My biggest takeaway from Frank's music this season is how he uses storytelling to interact with the personal experiences that matter to us the most. I think one of the true feats of Blonde is that it makes us care and relate to somebody else's conscious space. Everyone is nostalgic about their own things, smells, tastes, moments, and it's really hard to communicate the personal significance of that to somebody else. But through the incredible sounds, atmospheres, and lyrics, I feel nostalgic with Frank for the things that he loves, and it takes someone very refined in the human experience to be able to do that, not only for himself, but for everybody listening as well.
My name is Brie, and I'm from Paris, France. For me, Season 3 answered so many questions, taught me brand new things about two of my favorite albums ever, my favorite artist, and just so many new things about music in general. It uncovered many hidden treasures, opened my mind to new ideas, and gave a deeper meaning to songs I will be listening to for the rest of my life. This season helped me truly understand and appreciate the depth and beauty behind every part of Frank's music. Season 3 really meant a lot to me. Dissect, thank you so much.
Hi, Dissect. This is Kendall from Houston, Texas. My biggest takeaway from this season of Dissect is Frank Ocean's way of transporting his listeners to a world of nostalgia and youthfulness that we either forget or intentionally tuck away into the depths of our past. I think we can all appreciate Frank Ocean's way of taking us back to these times because although our adolescent years are far over, we cannot escape the incredible impacts they made on who we are as adults today. His greatest skill is vocalizing the common feelings and thoughts that everyone endures but cannot always put into words. He has a magical way of not only noticing the small stuff, but finding a way to romanticize every action and word that someone he is so blindly in love with reflects onto him, just as a young lover or fan of his music might notice them doing themselves.
Hi, my name is Alex from Eugene, Oregon. Good music should evoke a feeling. To me, Blonde does much more than that. It conjures an entire season, the summer. There's nothing more synonymous with freedom than summertime when we're young. We're not bound by school or weather. We fall in love. We make mistakes. The stories Frank tells on Blonde are completely unique to him and his summers, but they're told in a way that we recognize all too well. I think the true genius of Blonde is summed up perfectly in a YouTube comment I found, saying, "Blonde reminds me of my summer memories that never actually existed."
Hello, my name is Alberto and I'm from Tijuana, Mexico. The various ways that Frank is able to present the multi-layered complexity of the concept of duality is just mesmerizing to me. Myself, being Mexican American and being raised in the microcosm that the US-Mexico border is, I have dwelled with duality my entire life. I can see my identity struggles caused by this phenomenon easily portrayed throughout the entire album.
Hey, it's Colton from Ohio. Something that my friends and I talk about a lot is the idea that your reaction to an album depends a lot on when or where you first heard it. Blonde was released during a tough time in my life where big decisions needed to be made and old habits were beginning to end. To this day, Blonde is one of those albums that when I'm going for a long drive, I'll always consider playing it through, from top to bottom, just because songs like Self-Control and Godspeed, and the album as a whole, speak to me in a way that not many albums do, or can. I think that all three of your Dissect seasons depict artists that allow their work to be up for interpretation, and that's why those three albums will be timeless to me and many others. Thank you, Cole, for your diligence and creativity. Can't wait for season 4.
Hey Cole, this is Kevin from Berlin, Germany, and I just want to say thank you for dissecting Blonde because it became a super emotional album for me after a devastating breakup last December. This season of Dissect highlights very well how Blonde perfectly captures the feeling of falling in and out of love, especially when he did the Self-Control episode, which had me crying like a baby on my balcony on a warm summer night, which is probably just the way Frank intended it to be. That episode somehow became a turning point for me because for the first time in months I felt like it was okay to be heartbroken and that I'm not alone with these kind of feelings. So thank you very much, Cole.
My biggest takeaway from this season's Dissect is the undeniably strong connection between music and memories. How music has the pivotal ability to access our memories. How music can somehow recall moments far forgotten and how significant its role is in creating new ones. I mean, you can easily go back to a certain moment in your life just by listening to a song, and even though the memories don't change, your feelings towards them do. When you think about it, it really is a wonderful thing that music does, and Frank is a master in creating this.
Hey, this is Taylor from Austin, Texas, longtime super fan of Frank, and now of Dissect. My greatest takeaway from this season had to be during the Nights episode. The song is obviously already incredible and chill-giving, but when you hear it so many times, you kind of forget the effects. But when Cole toned down all the music in the second half just so you could hear Frank singing, damn, like hearing the song for the first time all over again. which is so hard to experience when you've already heard it so many times. So thank you for that, Cole. Thank you, Frank. Keep it up.
My name's Anne-Marie Donnelly, and I'm from El Paso, Texas. When I think of Frank Ocean, I think of car rides and long, endless roads and highways. Usually just a stretch of land used to get me from one place to another, but Blonde made them more than that. They were avenues of time travel, spaces of reflection, or just a safe space to feel each note. As I drove, Blonde and Frank came along with me. There were thunderstorms to self-control and sunsets to Nikes. The same way these trips took me from old to new places, Frank helped me reflect on the old and grow into the new. I am so grateful for Frank, for this album, and for this podcast for joining me on this journey.
This is Matt from Bellevue. So I think that people often say the studio is its own instrument, and I think if we're looking at the studio from that perspective, maybe one of the most virtuosic planes of that instrument is Blonde. The placement of sounds, the exact carving of sounds is almost something that's like alien, that I wouldn't even dare like analyze because it seems like impossible to recreate in a way that Channel Orange doesn't. Luckily, we got the Dissect podcast with Cole Kushner to do exactly that. So thanks for doing good work, Cole, and keep it up, Frankie O.
Hey Cole, my name is Calvin and I'm from Berkeley, California. Blonde was released when I graduated from high school, a time of transition in my life. The album spoke to me about youth and lost love. Some days I would spend hours alone in my dorm, laying in bed and listening to Blonde. For months, the songs of this album would make me feel vulnerable and weakened by the emotional turmoil I was going through. Over time, I started to become healthier and putting effort into my passions and studies. I can confidently say I emerged from this time as a different person. Your analysis has validated the way I felt about Frank's message. Listening to this album no longer reminds me of how weak I once was, but how I've become a better and stronger person since then. Thanks for everything.
You did it again, Cole. I really appreciated the fact that you dissected Frank's lyrics and how you were able to find major details that could be overlooked to the common ear. How you examined his childhood and found hidden clues that direct you to important moments in his life. This podcast has made me appreciate Frank as an artist and an individual. Blonde was my favorite album of 2016. It was my soundtrack for that year and years to come. I play it all the time, whether I'm driving with my friends, riding my bike, anywhere I can to play this album. Summer's never over when I play Frank. This is Nana Styles from Atlanta, Georgia.
This is Joshua from Pamela, California. My biggest takeaway from this season is how good Frank is at capturing the emotions and feelings one feels during young adulthood. It's a very experimental and trying time in our lives, but how he's able to look back at it so fondly and realize how much he's grown from it is pretty moving, if I'm honest.
Hey, this is Matt from Sydney. Creating from yourself for yourself is something I have immense respect for. Blonde feels like Frank trying to understand and nurture his own life experiences, and the finesse of the album shows you how much that means to him. I honestly think he could keep all of his albums to himself and be content with that because he was able to express himself. And I'm amazed I get to share such an intimate experience with someone I don't even know. I don't mind a 4-year wait between albums if I know Frank is doing what he wants.
Hi, my name is Anthony and I'm from Tempe, Arizona. Frank Ocean's art has been by far the most influential music in my life. He's my idol and I love everything he creates from Nostalgia Ultra to Blonde. His art is about his experiences from being nostalgic, enduring pain, and seeing the beauty of the struggle. I inhale his music daily. Frank's music gave me a new perspective on life and the struggles it delivers. In my struggles, I found that his masterpieces are therapeutic. It's not only just the lyrics and his soothing voice, it's the beats and the mood that they convey. His poetry gives me hope. Overall, Blonde is an instant classic and I can't wait to hear what he drops next. Thank you and I love you, Frank.
Hi, I'm Annie from Australia. To me, Blonde is all about Frank exploring his own subconscious narrative and in turn helping the rest of us navigate through the paradoxes of life, relationships, and our own self-identity. Whether it's a poolside convo or a Facebook story, the modern tales Frank explores in his music make him a no-brainer candidate for a voice of our generation. It's rare we get to witness an artist like him in our lifetime. Thanks, Cole. I didn't think it was possible, but this season I've come to appreciate even more about what Frank puts into his music and fall even more in love with him.
Hey, my name is Donald from Miami, Florida. Ne-Yo is one of the best songwriters ever. I remember 6 years ago he listened to the Channel Orange album, which he liked, but he said he didn't know what the hell Frank Ocean was talking about. So it was good for you to explain, what he was talking about. I love how in Bad Religion you were able to do the metaphor of him talking to a taxi driver, whereas like a sinner talking to a priest at the Catholic Church. I also love the pyramids, and I love how you involve people with Blonde with the 1, 2, 3, 4 episode. All right, thanks.
I'm Rachel from San Diego, and Blonde was released during the summer. I was experiencing heartbreak for the very first time. So you can imagine how intensified every lyric felt for me. But as much as Frank's words stung, they also made me feel understood and helped reframe my lost love in a way that turned my battle with resentment into gratitude. With the album's enigmatic depth and emotion, it helped me memorialize that relationship, honoring the love that was present and nothing else. Cole's point about doing ourselves a disservice if we don't consider putting into practice the underlying philosophies of Frank's music brings us to break free from the nostalgia that can sometimes consume us. This Dissect season has made me fall deeper in love with this album, so shout out to Cole.
Hi, my name is Ramzi Khalife and I'm from Beirut, Lebanon. My biggest takeaway with Blonde and Frank Ocean's work in general is how he can introspectively comment on his life in retrospective fashion. With this method, he can express important memories and emotions from his life that, to me, a 17-year-old going through many thematic ideas Frank discusses, such as love and self-realization of identity, can really relate to. Frank Ocean adds the icing to the cake with profound knowledge on his musical production, unlike anything I've listened to before. And with that, I'd just like to say how much Frank Ocean's work has really inspired me and influenced the way I enjoy and listen to music.
Hi, my name's Jason Jurado. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. And my favorite segment from the whole Frank Ocean season would have to be Bad Religion. It just shows that you can give someone love back and you can praise him as a god, but really, you don't have to. And it just spoke to me on a spiritual level. And hearing each piano key, how it affected each lyric just got to me even harder. And I respect it in so many ways. And I loved it. And I can't stop thinking about it every time I listen to the song.
Hi, I'm Chase, and I'm from League City, Texas. Frank Ocean is without a doubt my favorite artist in the music industry, and I never really could put a finger on why that is, until I listened to Season 3 of this podcast. My biggest takeaway is that I should spend more time focusing on the beauty and value of even the most broken things in this world, and to not make snap decisions about people based on the way they look. I love Endless and Channel Orange so much, and yet Blonde is still my favorite album because no matter how many times I listen to it, the meanings of each song continue to change just as our thoughts on individuals change as we spend more time with them. Frank Ocean truly understands the beauty that comes with being human.
Hi, my name is Nick. I am from Tustin, California. My biggest takeaway from Blonde would have to be how Frank is able to be really personal with his audience. I always find it really interesting when artists are able to take all of their personal experiences and just channel it out onto record. I always think that's really amazing. Regarding the podcast, I think it's really interesting, the instrument perspective. I never really thought of how Frank uses different voices in order to channel his different ages, I think. That was probably really interesting to me.
Hey, what's up? My name is Luis and I'm from Arizona. Season 3 of the podcast gave me a chance to understand the true meaning of Frank Ocean's Blonde. I really liked that he went on personal topics such as his drug abuse and heartbreaks. What I really like about Frank is that he is such a meticulous guy and he puts a lot of work into his albums and it really shows. I want to thank you, Cole, for dissecting this album that means a lot to me.
Hey, my name's Travis. I'm from Oklahoma City. So the best part of the season was your closing monologues for sure. There's been so many times that I've tried to explain to friends why one of Blonde's songs impacted me so much. Now I have something to point them to. But really, it's extremely hard to listen to anyone else when I have Frank's lyricism and vocals available 24/7. But I'll always hold Blonde near and dear to my heart because I went through a moment of isolation, coupled with some major worldview changes in the months after Blonde came out. And this album was there to help me reflect on the past, navigate through the present, and plan for the future. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Isaac. I'm from California. My biggest takeaway from Season 3 would be the challenges Frank had to face in his adolescence and early adulthood. He moved from one side of the country, New Orleans, to Los Angeles, and it takes some serious balls to do that. To be able to live by yourself away from your family is a very scary thing.
Hey, I'm Joan, and I'm from Barcelona, Catalonia. I discovered Frank Ocean back in 2014 when I listened for the first time to Channel Orange, which quickly became one of my favorite albums of all time. I didn't appreciate Blonde that much when it came out. I have to admit that maybe I was a little disappointed, although little did I know then that it would later change my life. As time went by, I started understanding the album and relating to many experiences narrated in the songs. Blonde became the soundtrack to my best and worst moments, and I cannot even explain how this album has helped me going through a lot of stuff. So Frank, thank you for your honesty, thank you for making me feel nostalgia and optimism in such a powerful way, and for having me inspire me in my worst moments.
My name is Daryl, and I'm from the Netherlands, and Blonde, it made me be honest to myself about my emotions, really. It's with me through every season, almost every day. It's transcendent to me. It just changed the way I thought about music. It changed the way I looked at lyrics. And I don't think this album will ever stop feeling new to me. I love you, Frank Ocean. Peace out.
Hi, this is Juliet from San Francisco. I really enjoyed this season of Dissect, and the episode about super rich kids resonated with me a lot. One of my favorite parts of the song is how Ocean does a verse about starting his day up on the roof, and this reappears when he ends his day up on the roof. I never noticed the line that says, "Do they sew wings on tailored suits?" but really appreciated the paradox that Ocean introduces, where he wonders if everyone, no matter their background, has guardian angels. I also really loved the likening of his death to a stock market crash, because only Frank Ocean is that brilliant.
I'm Patrick. I'm from Upton, Massachusetts. And I remember 2 years ago today that I'm recording this, listening to Blonde for the first time. I remember the outro on Self-Control, the beat switch on Nights, just how I knew that this was a really special album. And it was the soundtrack for my final years of high school. And tomorrow I'm actually going off to college. And I just can't wait to continue living and growing with this album. So thank you, Cole. Thank you, Frank. And can't wait for next season of Dissect.
Aaron Azami from Los Angeles, California. Frank Ocean, to this day, still frustrates me because I don't know how someone can be this good. But overall, Blonde and Channel Orange make me feel emotions that I could never have felt without these pieces of art. He is a genius of our time, and hopefully will continue to make beautiful music.
Hi, my name is Monica, and I'm from Tampa, Florida. Blonde is an album that I had to see live to truly appreciate the way that it deserves, unfortunately. Although I was initially a hater, seeing Frank perform this body of work with such a level of reverence and care has allowed me to experience it the way that I think he wanted me to, and now it never grows old. As a speech therapist, I loved the discussion on the anatomical origins and manipulations of voice in the solo episode and how that relates to music, as well as learning about frisson was super dope. So thank you so much, Cole, and thank you, Frank.
Hi, my name is Yasmin Zahab, and I'm 21 years old, and I think the most important thing that I've gathered from Blonde in this podcast is that you're always finding new ways to appreciate each song. You're always finding a new level of that song. You're always relating to a new aspect of that song, and that song is so versatile and it's so timeless that no matter at what point of your life, you can just press shuffle and immediately you'll be able to feel that.
Frank Ocean's Blonde is undeniably the most important album I've heard. An album so rich in artistic expression of raw emotion, the drug-induced highs of Solo to the heartbreak-infused lows of Siegfried. An album that breaks the stigma for me. Boys Don't Cry. Blonde taught me how universal these feelings are, albeit in different situations. I thought that I was dreaming when you said you loved me. The start of nothing. I had no chance to prepare. I couldn't see you coming. Blonde has taught me, perhaps unintentionally, through lyrics like this, that feelings experienced throughout 19 years are okay. They come and go. And as he says in Godspeed, there will be mountains that you won't move. Blonde is more of an album. I'll forever cherish it and the man who made it.
Jaleel Jackson, Atlanta. Frank Ocean isn't really the type of artist I can put into words. That's why when I first started listening to this podcast, I thought Blonde would be the perfect album to get dissected. Blonde really came into my life at the perfect time because I was going through a sort of an identity crisis of my own, and hearing all the themes of duality really connected with me. Also, Cole, Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder is my favorite song of all time, and he used it in this season. So, songs in the key of life, possible future season? Just saying, Cole. Thanks for everything.
Greg Duran, Torrance, California. The thing that makes Blonde special is that
Frank is able to capture the emotions of what it is to be a millennial in the current age, how it is to grow up, to fall in love, to deal with different types of technologies that affect our lives now. And I think he captures it like a beautiful nostalgic photograph of sound. I think it's one of the greatest pieces of art of our time.
Hey, this is Peter from Seattle. Before Dissect, I had been a casual Frank Ocean fan and an even more casual music fan in general, really only seeing music as an entertainment platform rather than as a legitimate and complex form of artistic expression. It's been such an eye-opening experience to learn just how much of a genius lyricist and storyteller Frank is. It amazes me just how beautiful, complex, and transcendent music can be, and I just want to say thank you, Cole, for sharing your knowledge and insight with the world.
Jamie Flatters from South London. It's very rare that an artist can make you define a year of your life by when they brought you an album. I remember 2016 for many reasons, but above all, I remember it's the year I heard Blonde. This album has acted like the soundtrack of my teenage years, with Frank's sometimes tender, sometimes distressed and dissonant tone being the vulnerable male voice that I needed growing up. Through his tales of heartbreak, geniusly implicit lyrics and introspective thought, Blonde has made new barriers in my life seem familiar and therefore easier to overcome. When normal conversation fails, music like this seems to be able to communicate the perfect feeling. It's an album for people who find the joy in searching for the answers. I would like to thank Cole for creating a community of listeners who share these values. And just like my elders showed me other music legends, I can't wait to tell my kids about Just a Good Guy, who came up by saying the line, I'm high and I'm by, who in my eyes is the greatest of all time, the man made of pink matter. Frank Ocean.
Hi, I'm Becca from Troy, Ohio, and I think my biggest takeaway from this season was how outlandishly true Frank is to his own art. Doing songs like Pyramids, which are completely unheard of anywhere in the music industry right now, or any time for that matter. He has shaped the way I look at music sonically, how I understand the lyrical aspect of music, and also just how I gauge human emotion. He's just amazing, and I'm so glad that other people look at his music the way I do.
Kate from Texas here. Frank Ocean is my favorite musical artist. I remember hearing songs for women in high school, and then the album Channel Orange got me through a really tough time, and I've been a fan ever since. Blonde came out right when I'd started dating my boyfriend, and I'll never forget a romantic rainy evening driving around listening to Ivy. That album will always be the soundtrack to falling for the love of my life. Frank's ability to transport and convey nostalgia gets me every time. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Cole, for a great season.
My name's Tristan. I'm from Las Vegas. This album is my favorite album of all time. I connect with it on an extremely personal level, and I've been listening and studying every second of this album every day for the last 2 years. And still, this podcast revealed a lot to me. There's something absolutely fucking incredible going on here, and I can't thank you enough for shining a light on it. And thank you, Frank Ocean, for changing the way I view life.
Hi, I'm Andrew from Glasgow in Scotland. So Blonde's my favourite record of all time. I've got it tattooed on my arm. And I love like all its musical qualities, production qualities, like the outro and Self-Control, just the best bit of music ever, in my opinion. Anyway, so I love all that. But I think what sticks with me, especially in tracks like Ivy and Wait Ferrari, is that the album's got a proper message. It's about appreciating failed relationships for what they are, and like savouring the feelings rising above the bitterness. And I'm moving through a breakup now, and I can genuinely say that philosophy is something I try to live by. I don't think every album, I don't think any album gives you like a philosophy to live by, and for that I'll just always love Blonde and I'll always love Frank Ocean.
Hey Cole, my name's Noah and I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Aside from my great love for Dissect, I have a much greater love, Christopher Francis Bro. That being said, the third season of Dissect opened my mind and furthermore my eyes to the true talent and furthermore pure artistry of Frank Ocean. His delivery, flow, originality, writing ability, his symbolism, his production, it's truly what makes him him and what makes him one of the greatest, if not the greatest artist of this generation. Your podcast made me realize that Blonde is much more than just an album. It's truly a masterpiece. Just remember, it's a cult, not a clique.
My name is Aaron Frame from Fullerton, California. I've always loved Frank for his complexity and desire to grasp a listener with his voice and almost tease them to go further down the rabbit hole. Finally, with Season 3 of Dissect, There was a way to break down not only the ideas, but the tone of each song, and not only for me, but for all of us to collectively enjoy and understand. Emotion is everything in this world, and the ability to understand and translate emotion, especially in the form of a storied album, is the equivalent of a superpower. A power that is not only underused these days, but maybe also a little underappreciated, which is why we need things like Dissect. Musical history, instrumental and lyrical breakdown, and the occasional tears and goosebumps. Thank you, Cole, for an amazing Season 3.
My name is Mark Goodwin. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I have synesthesia, which Cole's mentioned before, which means I can associate colors when I listen to music, and that turns Blonde into a Michelangelo painting for me when I listen to it. Beautiful whites, greens, pinks, and yellows fill the album. Blonde has really helped me make sense of the past while also giving me hope for the future. An instant classic.
My name is Brandon, and I am from Oakland, California. Some of the most profound experiences in my life have happened with this album as a background. I'll share one briefly. Heartbroken and alone in Seattle in winter, I was walking along a pier with Blonde on shuffle and Godspeed came on. As I sat staring into the distance, nearly in tears, the way I could relate began to give me hope, began the healing process as I let go of my claim on her, repeating to myself, "It's a free world."
My name is Nash. I'm from Hickory, North Carolina, and when Blonde first dropped, I was fresh out of a relationship. It was my first relationship, and it was long distance as well. And I just remember the lyric that spoke out to me the most was in Self-Control, and it was when Frank goes, "I'll see between y'all, it's nothing." And I just remember as the weeks and the months and even the year that passed on after that, there was at least one lyric from at least each song that just held me and was the only thing there for me when basically nobody else or nothing else could suffice. And I think that's why Blonde will forever be my favorite album of all time. Thanks, Cole.
My name is Eli Stokin. I'm from Denver, Colorado. When I first listened to Blonde the night of August 20th, 2016, I immediately loved it. I was in love with the song's unique structure, Frank's complex lyrics, and the puzzling effects laden throughout the track list. But it wasn't until the summer of 2017, when I experienced my first love and the subsequent heartbreak, that Blonde became my favorite album of all time. My daily routine of coming home and listening to all 17 tracks guided me on my path of healing and revelation. Frank's beautiful, intimate stories continue to grow with me as I go through this film. That's my life.
My name is Victoria Maudine. I'm from Silver City, New Mexico, and Season 3 of Dissect really took me beyond the music. It showed me that Frank Ocean is not only a musician, but an artist that paints visuals with his creativity within his lyrics and the hidden messages that seem to just slip right into the cracks. So who is Frank Ocean to me, you might ask? The artist, the musician, and the genius.
My name is David from Baltimore, and my favorite moment in the season came in the two-part Pyramids episode. What an incredible masterpiece Frank pieces together, and diving into every aspect was really revealing. His telling of this incredible tale of the black woman throughout history, alongside his genius composing of the pyramid-shaped music, really makes you realize how much of a genius Frank truly is. I especially enjoyed the analysis of the moment in the song, where Frank switches his narrative to the viewpoint of the pimp, and shows how even the African-American pimp is not the same kind of king he once was, despite the seemingly impressive material goods he possesses. Finally, the final line of "But your love ain't free no more" completely brings the song together in a climactic and shocking twist ending, which normally doesn't occur in popular music unless written by the one, the great Frank Ocean.
Hello, my name is Darrell from Renton, Washington. My biggest takeaway from Season 3 of Dissect is that Frank Ocean is one of the most thoughtful artists I've ever listened to, and as a result, he is my favorite artist of all time. He cares about every aspect of making an album. He is articulate and really cares about his craft. He wants us to feel all of the feels he has experienced in his life. Since I enjoyed my childhood, nostalgia has always brought me happiness and a bit of sadness. It makes me yearn to be young again and see the people I don't get to anymore. Since he is so nostalgic, it always makes me emotional to listen to his music. Even though he has made some memorable albums as a result of his heartbreak, he deserves to be happy and share his love with someone. I look forward to his next musical endeavor and progression as an artist. Thank you, Cole, for taking the time to dissect my favorite artist, and I look forward to next season. And P.S. version every time.
Hey, what's up? This is Ben from Nantucket. I think my biggest takeaway from Blonde is just the pure power of the album. This podcast has allowed me to appreciate this album even more, knowing the depth Frank goes through with every verse. People that say it is not as good as Channel Orange don't understand that its purpose isn't to compete with or be better than it. It is to provide new emotions, new stories, and forever compliment his previous work, because whatever Frank is willing to give us, I won't take for granted.
I find myself being very selective about where and when I listen to Frank Ocean because I know that when I do, I'm about to go on an emotional roller coaster, and that's the power of his music. I've struggled with depression for most of my adult life, and Blonde has helped me confront and even find consolation in some of the darker aspects of my mind and my personality. It's helped me connect with my childhood and my adolescence, and helps me feel less alone. This is Meg.
Hi, I'm Josh from Houston, Texas. During this season of Dissect, I went through the worst breakup I've ever experienced, and for a period of time I felt completely hopeless as a result. But the episode on White Ferrari reminded me how to live on my own, and it taught me to cherish the memories I had with my best friend. Cole, thank you so much for everything that you've done. I would have never made it without you.
My name is Kevin from Knoxville, Tennessee. And Frank Ocean, from my opinion, is definitive towards this generation's approach to independent music, including Blonde and the progression afterward. There's no sense of compromise in lieu of emotion. It's admirable, beautiful music that resonates with my generation because I feel we collectively stand for the same genreless structures in our everyday life.
Hi, I'm Colin, and I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. I've had a hard time moving on in my life and just letting go. Whether that be from people or a certain relationship or the past, it's just never been a strong suit of mine. And especially now when I'll be off on my own soon, I've been running into that front a lot lately. And I think through Blonde and songs like White Ferrari, I've kind of learned that I'm not necessarily alone in that struggle. People like Frank are as well. And while Blonde didn't necessarily give me the map on how to get over that, I think it has shown me that there might be a way to move on and still have it be a part of you. And I'm grateful.
I'm Olivia from the northwest of England, and to me, Blonde is summer. It's all the good days, all the bad days, and it just makes you feel so many different emotions when you listen to it. My biggest takeaway from this season of Dissect is an understanding of all the components that come together for music to actually make you feel something. You feel like you understand it when you listen to it, but when you take it all apart, it makes you realise how much effort goes in to make that sound.
Hi, I'm Maya, and I'm from Dallas. My biggest takeaway from the season was the Super Rich Kids episode. I never really thought about the struggles rich young people might go through, and this episode really opened my eyes. I remember you saying something along the lines of issues like these not being addressed because people don't like to listen to rich people saying they have problems. And after listening to that episode, it's something that I started to see in real life. I'm a high schooler and I go to a magnet school, so I'm surrounded by kids that come from different socioeconomic places every day, and it's true that kids with more money tend to guard their feelings. Thank you so much for taking your time to delve into beautiful works like Channel Orange and Blonde. I appreciate you.
The sound of Blonde really found me. It was familiar, yet with enough edges that made it satisfyingly creative. I was instantly taken by self-control in White Ferrari. I craved to hear them again and again. I played them loud. I wondered how long could I play these and keep their incredible feeling. They were warm and fresh with the common thread of Frank Ocean's genius, hard work, and love for music.
Hi, this is Brian from Ireland. I'm a musician and I also lecture in musical analysis in a university in Dublin. This podcast has provided me with a great deal of inspiration and insight, both as a composer and an educator. I was blown away by the first two seasons of the podcast, but your decision to choose Blonde really thrilled me. Blonde is a really important album for me personally, as it soundtracked a breakup I had in 2016 and was played on repeat for a few months. However, despite the repetition, I'm not sure how deeply I had thought about the record until I listened to this season's Dissect. The level of analysis throughout is incredible. The discussion of duality seemed serendipitous to me, and the revelation that the beat switch in Nights is the exact halfway point of the album, oof. Keep doing what you're doing, Cole. It really means something.
Hi, Cole. My name is Corinthia Ngea, and I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I've listened to all of the seasons of Dissect, and I love your work. This season has been no different. I've really enjoyed listening to you talk about Frank Ocean and the complexity of his music and of him as a person. And that has really allowed me to respect him and respect his art and enjoy his music so much more and enjoy music overall so much more. Now that I understand there's depth to any song.
Hey, I'm Cameron from Brisbane, Australia, and the saga of the release of Blonde ended over the weekend of my birthday, immediately forging a strong connection between me and the album. I bought Blonde as soon as it dropped and listened to it on my way to work, during my break at work, and all night after work, and I've never really stopped listening to it. The themes of heartbreak, love, youth, and personal growth are ever relevant in my life, and the way Frank embodies these themes in his work is truly something special. Thank you, Dissect, for covering this artist that I love and providing insight that has changed the way I listen to my favourite album of all time.
Hey Cole, I'm Gina.
And I'm Joe, and we're brother and sister, Frank Ocean and Dissect superfans from Long Island.
When we sat down to figure out what our biggest takeaway from this season was, we had such a hard time because the entire season was so meaningful. Each and every chord and effect was truly analyzed and appreciated.
If you asked me 3 months ago what frisson was, I would have said that it was when it's humid outside and your hair gets all puffy. I'd like to close with a quote from Ludwig van Beethoven, who once said he wished he was as good as Frank Ocean.
Thank you for this Frank Ocean tribute. It has meant more to us than you could possibly know.
What speaks to me most about Blonde and Frank's whole discography is how he can touch on just a few main themes without becoming redundant. Frank talks about summer, youth, memories, love lost, and the hopeful prospect of love that could blossom throughout all of his projects. This creates a solid story which the listener can follow while listening to the album in its entirety, and yet the ideas are never overdone. We really understand what Frank values and who he is as an artist this way.
Hey, this is Allison from Brawley, currently living in Oakland. Frank's transparency and minimalist approach to many of the songs in Blonde are absolutely stunning. My personal favorite being Siegfried. When I hear Blonde, I picture myself in an all-white room, and as each instrument makes its way into the songs, the room begins to slowly fill with color. It leaves me in wonder and amazement how Frank Ocean can bring such an empty space like that to life. As an introvert, it can be super hard to express those feelings and ideas that live inside me. So I think season 3 really reminds me to be true to myself and have confidence in the development of my own picture, my own story.
I'm Mackenzie and I'm from Marietta, California. After this season's analysis on Blonde, I think it's clear that Frank Ocean really proves the difference between a musical artist and a musical genius. Many artists are celebrated exclusively on their vocal abilities to evoke sadness. However, Frank Ocean really uses his experiences and makes you live it with him every time you listen to the song, allowing you to reminisce on a time you felt that way too. By allowing us to ride shotgun in his white Ferrari despite the personal and sad journey that we're about to witness, you're really time traveling with him to that moment. Frank's ability to combine both his level of emotional and musical intelligence is the reason why he is able to create music that describes how people feel when words cannot. And that's what makes him not only one of the greatest artists of the generation, but in history.
Hello, my name is Caesar from Cathedral City, California. I just want to say Frank Ocean's music is so grand, musical, and intriguing. I can't relate to his situation, but I can relate to his emotions, agitation, sensibility, and I think that's what makes his music universally praised, because in this divided world, we all feel pain, anguish, and lonely, and Frank Ocean understands this and makes you feel that you're not alone and helps by putting himself on the line, and in this vulnerability is what makes his music just so fucking beautiful.
Hi, my name's Daniel and I'm from London, and about 2 years ago exactly, one of my friends tweeted about Blonde coming out, and I had never listened to Frank Ocean music aside Thinking About You, but I instantly loved this album. And one thing I find about songs is that I can add them to playlists all I want, but at a specific moment, a specific song will come into my head as a literal mood, and I felt that with a lot of songs on Blonde. And this season of the Dissect podcast has helped me to learn so much about Frank Ocean and his creation, showing things I never thought of and opening my eyes to the incredible mastery behind his music.
Aldo Robledo, New York City. Frank Ocean's music has been prevalent throughout my high school experience. From the train ride on my first day as Pink Matter played, to the morning of senior year being started off by Good Guy, he's shown me how everything happens in a blur and to enjoy every moment. I'm about to start college applications, and just yesterday I was freaking out over his endless live stream. And then the release of Blonde, and then the singles he dropped afterwards. That really is a fucking fast year flew by.
Hey, my name is Dylan. I'm from Athens, Georgia. I'd always wondered why the song Solo made me so emotional. I probably teared up to it and cried like a baby listening to it more than any other song I've ever listened to. And now that I understand it, it just makes me even more emotional. It's that Frisian, man.
This is Kevin. The biggest takeaways for me listening to this podcast this season is just the subtlety and the detail that he put into each and every track, which now that I get more meaning behind it, the more beautiful and more great this album is to me. And I see how much it meant to him. So,
my name is Aphil, originally from Egypt but live in England. The night Blonde was released, I was at home with my little sister, and we was on the website watching the Nikes video when it uploaded with the locations of the pop-up shops, and one was in London. I've never driven so fast anywhere. We went inside the pop-up shop and got the free Boys Don't Cry sign. I remember going back to the car and ripping open my copy of the magazine, and I just remember the CD landing on my lap and I couldn't believe it. Blonde is a very special album to me because I'll never forget that special moment me and my little sister Alia had listened to the album for the first time on the drive back home. We still speak about the magazine at least once a week, and it's a special memory I'll share with her forever.
I'm Levi from Morgantown, West Virginia. Before the podcast, I hadn't listened to Frank Ocean. I had heard of him and I wanted to check him out, but I'm bad about getting around to that stuff. Through the course of this podcast, I learned about his music, and I think my art was influenced in a myriad of ways. I see meaning beyond the surface, and I see that art can reflect your interior, but still resonate with other people. The White Ferrari episode specifically made me cry, and I hadn't done that in a long time. Blonde is now, and probably will be for a while, my inspiration when I create my art.
My biggest takeaway from Blonde is that our childhood and adolescence is always with us, and it shapes who we are. I am at an age now where I realize I have the rest of my life to be an adult, and I'll never be that kid again. We only have a few precious years to be a kid in comparison to our decades of adulthood. So much happens in such a short amount of time when we are young, and it's all incredibly transformative. Ultimately, Blonde has taught me that if we are looking for answers, creative inspiration, or help of any kind, our childhood is a world of its own to explore and dissect.
Natalie, Texas. For me, there is no other artist that can evoke so much real, raw human emotion from a place so delved into the heart and soul. The way Frank paints his pictures is the exact same way we all live our lives, through flashing memories and rose-colored lenses. Every journey I've faced has been alongside his music. There is so much pain and so much happiness attached to every song, for me, but also for Frank and anyone else that has listened to Blonde. Everything seems to be fleeting but long-lasting at the same time, and he's able to blend it all together into something singular, coherent, and beautiful.
Hey Cole, this is Brad. I am from Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and I am a huge fan of the podcast. I started listening to the Frank Ocean season due to my avid Frank fandom, and I got so hooked I finished the Kanye and Kendrick seasons while I was waiting for the Nights episode. 2 seasons in 4 days. Your ability to shine a light on the genius of these artists is unbelievable, and somehow you made me appreciate Frank more than I even did before. So thanks, Cole, and I can't wait for what's to come.
I'm Caden from Cypress, Texas, and after listening to this season of Dissect, I wanted to give my 2 cents on Blonde. I've seen people compare Blonde to the 4 Seasons, to Phases of Summer, stuff like that, but I see Blonde as a collection of feelings and memories that Frank thinks of when he thinks of summer. But it's not just his feelings that he wants to share with us. He wants us to experience something too. Like, to me, Pink and White is sitting shotgun with the top down while going down the California coast on a sunny day. And that's what music is to me. Thank you, Dissect, and thank you, Frank Ocean.
This is Ryan from Las Vegas, and my biggest takeaway from Frank Ocean and the Blonde album in particular is the way it takes you into another world. I can't start the record if I know I have to stop it halfway through. It always feels like the album is going on without me. It's kind of like reading a good book that puts you into a different headspace. His work is altruistic and honest, and Frank Ocean is a musical figure we're very lucky to have.
Hi, this is Jill from Boston. My biggest takeaway this season definitely had to be Frisian. I've experienced it so much when listening to specific albums and songs that take me back to certain memories, and Blonde is no exception. I could still never quite articulate what I was feeling. The closest I could come to was chills. Cole, I'd like to thank you for so accurately describing what so many of us have felt when listening to this album. I've never been one to really share my thoughts or feelings, but this season in particular has really inspired me to do so, because, for once, I actually had the words.
I'm Sam from London, Ontario, and to me, Blonde perfectly represents the end of summer. The last week or two of August that bleeds into the start of September, just as you're soaking up those last few moments of summer, that's when Blonde really shines for me. I have vivid memories of driving around my town with the windows down as the sun begins to set, with Nights, Skyline 2, or White Ferrari playing with the warm air coming in. The fact that 2 years after its release and I'm still able to unpack new meanings in lyrics or pick up new musical details every time I listen to this album speaks volumes about the immense quality and replay value that it has. Blonde is a beautifully introspective album, and Frank's discussions on love, summer romance, and life make for a classic, timeless album that I will appreciate for the rest of my life.
My name is Charmaine, and I'm from Colleyville, Texas. And when people tell me that they don't listen to Frank Ocean because it puts them into their quote-unquote feels, I think that is probably the worst trade-off in the world to make, to miss out on the art that is Frank Ocean, because he kind of reminds you that it's normal, it's human, it's beautiful to feel sad, to feel a longing for someone you no longer have, to feel your feelings. And I think we tend to avoid feeling our feelings a lot. And I don't know, just listening to Frank Ocean reminds you that it's okay to. It's artistic too.
Hi, this is Caroline from Florida, and my biggest takeaway from Blonde is that it's so much more than an album to me. It's like a time capsule to a part of my life. I mean, I still remember exactly where and when I heard White Ferrari for the first time because it just absolutely brought me to tears. I thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world, and I think Frank just has a natural way of doing that. And Channel Orange was a phenomenal album, but Blonde really, to me, solidified him as one of the greatest artists, not just in recent years, but of all time. So thank you, Cole, for another great season. I really enjoyed it.
Hey guys, so my name is Ali, and I'm from Morocco. Wow, just wow. That's the only word that comes to my mind when it comes to this album or this season of Dissect. I mean, I'm looking at this album on a whole new other perspective thanks to you, Cole, and I'm super thankful for that. And I kind of have to agree with you. The second part of Self-Control is one of the most, or even the most gorgeous moment of the album, in my opinion. I literally can't find proper words to describe what I feel while listening to it. Just get chills every time.
Hello, my name is Jose and I reside in Mobile, Alabama as I'm currently attending graduate school. Daily we are bombarded by messages and information, making it difficult to sort of unpack the underlying themes and purposes of the messages being delivered. One of the most exciting takeaways from the podcast is the sheer amount of reflection that can be applied to not only music, but the underlying skill of generalizing to other forms of art. To have a host like Cole, who is essentially teaching us to dissect the material into components and to consider all the pieces, not only promotes critical thinking, but also increases the enjoyment of the art being presented to us.
Brandon from Ohio. Blonde as an album means so much to me. The music, collectively expressed in 17 songs, highlights the feelings of a deep nostalgia, how things used to be and what could be in the future. It connects with the angst brought about from the fear of living a regular life. The way Cole explains the emotions conveyed sonically, especially, is a favorite part of the season for me. It's hard to know what chord makes us feel a certain way. However, with this season, I feel like we are closer to finding the essence of life, our bull, a matador dueling in the sky. Thank you.
My name is Vincent. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. The biggest takeaway was from the White Ferrari episode. I've always had trouble moving on from past relationships, and I always felt like it was my fault. I did something wrong, but the biggest thing I understood was timing. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. I can't be upset about that. But like Frank said, I will always care for you. And that's exactly how I feel. And I can't be upset anymore about it.
How's it going? My name is Peter. I'm from the UK. I'm a huge fan of the Dissect podcast. Blonde is one of the 5 albums I've personally given a 10 out of 10 to, the others being Kid A, To Pimp a Butterfly, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and Aquemini. My biggest takeaway from Blonde was realising just how good Frank Ocean is at translating indescribable emotion into his music. He's truly an incredible and unique artist.
My name's Dakota. I'm from North Carolina, and the biggest takeaway from the Blonde album and the Dissect podcast about Frank Ocean is the importance of duality. I thought it was so awesome how the song Nights marks the halfway point and the switch between the album. Frank is a great artist, and although the album was excellent before, Hearing the in-depth analysis gave me a better understanding and taught me many new things about the Blonde album.
I'm Sarah from Perth, Australia, and Blonde to me is an album of intoxicating depth, unexplainable beauty, and psychedelic passion. Each track is so isolated, impactful, and refreshing. I love how Frank's manipulation of his voice to depict the younger him captures his youth, presenting me with flashbacks and his raw emotions which evoke such hyperactive thinking for me. I am constantly caught up in the abstract poetry of it all. I find Blonde so precious as it's a document of where Frank is right now as a person, a time capsule of the past 4 years since Channel Orange, so intimate yet inscrutable.
Hey Cole, this is Ian from Orlando, Florida. Before this season, I had this idea of Frank Ocean as being avant-garde or having a certain quality that you just needed to get in order to enjoy his music. But this season has not only shown me the depth of his persona, his personality, and his virtuosity as a musician, but also how accessible his music is and how each listen reveals a new layer in his music that you may have never caught before. I can truly say that this season has made me appreciate Frank Ocean tremendously, and it has indeed made me a fan of his and his music.
My name is Zaire, and I'm from Oakland, California. I've always appreciated the way Frank Ocean organizes his music. Every time I listen to his projects, I can tell how meticulous to detail he is. And after listening to it from the dissected perspective, it shows me things deeper in the detail that I already listened to but never found. I believe his organization and storytelling skills can be applied to anything in life, no matter what it is you want to accomplish. If you take the time out and really think, why am I doing this? What will come out of this? How am I going to convey this message? Then it makes the goal of said task a lot easier to accomplish. It's also cool to hear you to point out his reclusive choices / striving for a normal life. Frank ultimately just wants to work on cars to me, and your view as to why he stays out the public eye makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
My name is Amy, and I'm from Melbourne, Australia. The track Solo is my biggest takeaway from Frank Ocean's Blonde. For years, I've wondered about the frisson phenomenon, a feeling I've often described as attempting to keep my head above water. However, it appears to be much more simple than that. Conflict and resolve, consonance and dissonance, bull and matador. While all of Ocean's tracks are lyrically extraordinary, the wordless vocal solos in this track paint a sonic picture of a feeling or vibe rather than a story. At the same time, it almost sounds as if he's singing the word war for the inner battle we all sometimes face. This is my frisson trigger when a track resonates with my emotional frequency.
Después de haber escuchado el podcast de Dissect acerca del álbum de Frank Ocean, pude entender qué había detrás de todo este álbum, cuáles son las principales razones por las que Frank Ocean escribe de una manera tan peculiar y todos los mensajes que hay detrás de sus líricas tan diferentes.
My name is Matthew. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Blonde is one of the few albums that fills me with total peace whenever I listen to it. If I hear the first synth note of Nikes, then I have to play the entire album. It's one of the most complete and varied musical experiences that I can think of. On my first listen, Blonde was one of the most deeply depressing things I'd experienced, speaking purely from a sonic standpoint, and now, after what has to be innumerable listens, all the themes of inner peace and forgiveness ring louder than anything else. I love this album.
Hey Cole, my name's Eric. I'm from Oklahoma. When I first heard that you were doing a full season analysis on Blonde, I was a little bit skeptical because whenever I first heard that album, I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't to me. It wasn't anything special. But after I kept seeing everyone call it like amazing and like one of the best albums they've ever heard, I couldn't get it. But after every episode that you've put out so far, I've loved this album more and more. And I have to thank you so much for that. And I'm gonna call it. I could say easily now that it's in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. So thank you.
Hey Cole, my name is Justas and I'm from Lithuania. Blonde is my second favorite album, only under My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and before listening to Dissect, I already knew that Frank was a genius, but now my opinion is justified by your dissection. It's an emotional roller coaster, and has been there for me when people couldn't be. I love it from start to finish, and I know many people do too. Best wishes from Lithuania, and good luck on the next season.
This is Mark from London. Blonde really allowed me to come to terms with a lot of things that were happening in my life. It was Ivy and Self-Control. Those were the two tracks that really shoved truth down my throat. Those ideas of missed opportunities, that shit hit me like a truck. but it was medicine I needed, and Blonde gave me that real clarity to just step back, reflect, cry, and move on.
Frank's Blonde made me realize I can be melancholy about love and life sometimes, but still feel the beauty of it all. I love that Frank is open about his insecurities, most importantly, the nuances of sexuality. Blonde helped me be more genuine and honest about my own emotions. He also opened my eyes to Stevie Wonder's beautiful rendition of Close to You.
First of all, thank you for analyzing one of my favorite albums ever. The vignettes Frank's life on Blonde shows are truly sublime. What I took away from this album is how ethereal it is. From the strumming guitar pattern of Ivy to the otherworldly sonics of Siegfried, Frank makes it clear that these vignettes are hazy through the eyes of memory. But does that mean they're less real? Through Frank's stunning music and vocal delivery, he suggests not.
This is Alec from Chicago. I remember seeing Frank's performance of Bad Religion on Fallon and thinking it was one of the most important musical moments I had ever seen. With Blonde, we got an even more intriguing and beautiful work from someone who is everything I've ever wanted an artist to be. The record is dense, experimental, thoughtful, and thought-provoking, confessional, elusive, and above all, brave. All the things its creator has always been, even if he says otherwise. It's a record that has reminded me of so many small yet hugely impactful moments of my own time growing up, which to me is its true power. Frank may just be the artist of our time, and I'm so grateful he decided to share the stories of Blonde with us all.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm from Philly. Like many of the relationships described on Blonde, I too experienced one of those complicated and unrequited loves. Blonde was constantly playing in the background of our relationship and quickly became one of those blacklisted albums when things ended. It took a lot for me to be able to listen to this season, but it transformed this album into the soundtrack of my heartbreak. Blonde was the first album I fell in love to, experienced heartbreak to, listened to when I was so low, and then over and over again as I rebuilt myself back up. It is rare that you find a piece of art that so accurately walks the line between these polarized emotions. They are to be kept close, treasured, and hopefully never forgotten.
As I listened to you dissect Blonde, I was often surprised at how unique yet relatable Frank Ocean's stories are. It's crazy how someone can be so honest and genuine and convey their emotions and experiences so delicately and vividly. Blonde will forever have a place in my heart, a true masterpiece.
Hey Cole, this is Nathan Bala from Silver Spring, Maryland. I've been a fan since season 1. This album for me was very helpful because I recently got out of a 2-year relationship on August 24th. I will always love my ex-girlfriend, and that's one of the reasons why White Ferrari and Godspeed were very freeing and cathartic for me. I loved how he was able to express so many different emotions as a black man, from self-control to IV and Nikes. It all goes full circle, and I loved every second of it. Thanks.
Hi, Spotify Dissect listeners. My name's Nikki, and my biggest take from the Blonde Dissect series will be from White Ferrari. The way Cole dissected that song brought a whole new meaning to it. I always liked it, but I never thought too deep about it. But it just really made me appreciate people a lot more, in as much as I knew that people come into your life and they may not be there forever. It just made me want to establish more relationships with people and, enjoy it while it lasts, because they may not be around forever.
Hi, Shaquila from Miami, Florida. I think that it's easy to find a soundtrack for heartbreak, sadness, and loss. Loss of a relationship, of a dream, of yourself. Blonde provided the soundtrack for a feeling that I couldn't describe before hearing Frank's voice guide me through the nostalgia that comes after mourning a loss. The acceptance that moments in our lives are sometimes meant to be just that, moments. And it's okay to continue living with the feelings of those moments, to learn from them, to grow with them. Because I needed those moments in my life. I needed this soundtrack in my life.
This is Ethan from New York City. For the last 2 years, Blonde has been one of my best friends. I've listened to it so many times now that the lyrics and melody have become infused with my daily life. I don't think I've gone more than a week without listening to it. It's so fascinating to me. It feels at once thrown together and painstakingly perfected. It has bare-bones production, yet is grandiose and complex. The language is colloquial, almost conversational, but deep and multi-layered with double, sometimes triple meanings. It's Blonde with the E versus Blonde without the E. Nights versus days, one half of yourself pulling at the other. It's so honest it kills me. Thank you so much, Frank, if you're listening.
Hi, I'm Timmy from California. Blonde to me is all about isolation and love. The pain of being young when you dream deep for a lasting love, and the reality often falls short for any number of reasons. The genius of the album is that Frank treats every song like its own individual story and crafts the perfect sonic environment for each one. So you can really imagine yourself there, talking by the poolside or watching the clouds float in a white Ferrari. And the lesson is to accept all these experiences, no matter the pain, because in the end, it's still good.
Hiya, Cole. Trying to summarize and find my biggest takeaway from Blonde has always been super difficult, but I think you described it most accurately when you described the drums on White Ferrari being a presence more felt than heard, which is an excellent description to, I think, how this album has affected me. Every time I listen to this album, it's almost like it's an arrow which just pierces my subconscious, pushing me to a place of gratitude, vulnerability, reflection, a place of just raw emotion and feelings. It's an album that definitely speaks more to my heart than it does my head a lot of the times, which I think is amazing. So to see it broken down and see Frank go through his emotions and his memories like that, it's such a beautiful experience that we can all find some way to relate to. So with that being said, thank you, Frank Ocean, and thank you, Cole Kushner, for an amazing season of Dissect.
Hey Cole, my name is Jonathan, I'm 20 and I live in Jersey. Blonde has been a really important work of art to me ever since its release. I even cried tears of joy the night it dropped because it was such a long wait, but I'm happy to say that it was well worth it. My biggest takeaway from Blonde is that it reminds us that even though love can be so complicated and tragic at times, love is the answer to a lot of the questions and problems that we don't have an answer or solution for, whether it's on a personal or global level. Blonde embodies how truly powerful love can be, and it does it in such an honest, really personal but universal way. And for all that Blonde came out to be, thank you, Frank.
Frank Ocean is one of a few artists I've heard whose music seems to perfectly capture feelings in a song. I remember the first time I listened to Blonde, I was alone in a new city for a job I'd just taken. I went for a drive at night in the middle of this unfamiliar landscape, and I put on the album and listened to it start to finish. Frank Ocean's music makes me feel like I'm not so alone in this world, like there's other people that feel the same things I do. My biggest takeaway from the season is what you talked about on the self-control episode. I still get chills when I hear a lot of those songs. Frank Ocean's music finds a way to express what words cannot, and I really do feel his music in my soul. This is Jack from Denver, Colorado.
Hey Cole, my name's Shiri and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. What can I say? You've done it again. I've been listening to Dissect since season 1, but this is the first time I've gotten up the courage to share what I think. Blonde came out when I was starting my freshman year of college, so throughout all those feelings of uncertainty and adventure, love and loneliness, I really felt a strong connection with the album. And Channel Orange remains one of my favorite albums to this day. I even designed a website for a college project on it. Thank you for doing 2 of my favorite albums justice and for respecting Frank Ocean's character and integrity. Also, it's Allahu Akbar, not Allahu Akbar. Love, a longtime fan.
Cole, I'm Gully Flowers from Venice, California. Season 3 was by far my favorite season of Dissect. I had barely any appreciation of Frank Ocean before this season, and it has been incredibly enjoyable to go on this journey of discovery with you as my guide. My biggest takeaway is that so many artists put an incredible level of detail and nuance in their art, and it's hardly ever appreciated. That's what makes Dissect so special.
Hey, my name is Ray. I'm from the Bay Area in Vallejo, California, and my biggest takeaway from season 3 of Dissect was how much more the layers of each album seem to be peeled back. Sometimes I think I'm one of the biggest Frank Ocean fans that exists in this world. Turns out I'm not. Because things like Dissect come along and remind me that I'm not the only one. I discussed songs with people many times thinking there was more to them, only to have this podcast remind me there's less. And that the album Blonde is more stripped down, more compelling, more forward, and has more complexities to the raw instrumentation than what is even provided when the lyrics come to play. From the recreation of the music and breaking down Pyramid's amazing 3-note scale that represents potentially the pyramid itself, to the version of understanding Solo's vocal ending. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can't wait to see what Frank does to us all in the future.
What's up, Dissect? It's Light here from Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Finally able to get my voice on here. I love the show. I love that Cole can finally do this full time. That was such a great thing to hear when he finally mentioned it at the end of season 2. All right, now for season 3, I love the crack rock episode, specifically when he mentioned the blonde and hitting it raw. And I just always put that to a girl and never translated it to actual like raw cocaine, and it makes sense because of the song, obviously. I love the show. Keep up the good work, Cole. We all love it. Peace out. Rest in peace, Mac Miller.
In college, I fell in love for the first time. It was my last month of senior year, and after graduating, I moved across the country to start a new job. We talked all the time, visited occasionally, but neither of us was ready to commit to a long-distance relationship. Slowly, the texts and visits grew less frequent until they died out. We were the right people, I think, who found each other at the wrong time. We haven't spoken in a few years. We found other people, but the memories are still there, and I'll always think about what we could have had. That hopeless resignation to the present, nostalgia of the past, and search for resolution is what really resonates with me about Blonde. Frank concludes with Godspeed, where he is completely earnest in the claim that he will always love this person, but also in that he is trying to let go and move on. Maybe if Frank can do it, we can too.
My two favorite artists of all time are Kanye West and Frank Ocean. The way you dissected Hell of a Life by Kanye West last season just completely blew my mind. And the way you dissected Pyramids by Frank Ocean was none other. That song is incredible, and the story and the significance behind it is overwhelming. Hopefully next season we get House of Balloons or maybe another Kanye West album. This is Ivan.
It's Fatum Luciano. Long story short, I've grown. I was the guy reciting the homophobic lyrics that you played in the second episode of the season. I always question Frank's sexuality. It doesn't even matter to me anymore. Love is love, heartbreak is heartbreak. In regards to the album, the fact that there were limited drums amazes me. Solo is such a beautiful record and not a drum in sight. My main lyrical takeaway is that Frank hates a talker. The stories he told were sort of Tarantino-esque, how they jumped around. Thanks for your dedication, Cole. Like Tupac said in Dear Mama, you are appreciated.
My name is Marquise, and I am from New Haven, Connecticut. And Blonde has become one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. No one does nostalgia the way that Frank Ocean does nostalgia. So much so that he makes his nostalgia feel like it's yours. He paints these worlds lyrically that make you feel like you are really there. I find this album to be a very ingenious exploration of duality, sexuality, life, love, all of the undercover hidden gems and facts that the normal listener wouldn't catch make this album even more special.
Blonde to me is a journey from one feeling to the next until its ultimate conclusion. It evokes feelings of nostalgia, longing, belonging, heartbreak, and a litany of others. It's a mourning of youth. It's realizations of how precious time is. It's accepting that some things aren't meant to be, accepting that some mountains you can't move, and ultimately about finding joy in that journey through reflection. Blonde and Endless came at a pivotal time for me in my own journey, to have been the soundtracks to many precious memories, and will be the soundtracks for many to come. Safe to say, we'll all continue to swim good in Frank's vast ocean of sonic literature for years to come.
My name is Philmon and I'm from Seattle. Cole, you really did that. I still can't believe you did Blonde for this season of Dissect. This is an album that's so close to my heart. And Frank, I know you're listening. Thank you for bringing your art to the world. As a young black queer kid who loves sad boy music, Blonde quickly became the push for my own acceptance and openness to love and be loved, something that I didn't think was meant for someone like me. This album taught me to be vulnerable and find inherent beauty in just that. Both Blonde and this season of Dissect is and will be a huge part of my journey of identity into adulthood, and I'm truly, truly grateful for that.
When this album came out, I didn't really think much besides I like it and it's by Frank, so I like it even more. And then I went through a really rough breakup, and a deeper meaning revealed itself to me. Kind of cool, kind of sad. At the beginning of this Dissect podcast, I used to laugh because I would say, Frank is too well adjusted, how will I ever get there? But in the end, it's been reassuring. Thank you, Frank, for capturing these universal emotions. And thanks to Dissect for nerding out with me and helping me listen to this album again. Megan, Houston, Texas.
My name is Josiah Mooney from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. To me, listening to Blonde is to listen to my own human experience. Whether it's nostalgia, love, or uncertainty, Frank's intricate lyrics, minimalist production, and beautiful voice all culminate in songs that elicit moments and experiences in my life that represent the feelings Frank himself is emulating. These brutally honest, dare I say, frank songs are not only an enjoyable listen, but have helped me to see the beauty in the wide range of feelings we're exposed to in life.
Hi, I'm Jaime. Just wanted to start by saying thank you, Cole, for what you do. Music has always been an important part of my life, my refuge when I've been in need. Dissect has helped me see why music is so special to me in ways I could not previously articulate. Frank, Kanye, and Kendrick have been instrumental to me finding my way through life. I would say the biggest takeaway, not just from the season, but the series this far, has been to live my truth. I've been feeling stuck lately, been inside my head, trying to figure a way forward, moving beyond this endless loop of existential dread, finding peace in a chaotic world, finding me. I'm no longer living in an idea of another man's mind. I want to end this by thanking my friends and family for putting up with my bullshit over the years. I know I'm a different person now. Thank you, Cole, once more. Can't wait to see what's in store for season 4.
Jason, Toronto. It wasn't until Self-Control and White Ferrari began to remind me of someone's, that I soon discovered that this album was healing me. I listen to Blonde every day, from front to back for months on end, and even now I listen to portions of it weekly. Blonde has been there as I've grown through this really turbulent time in my life. I've learned to forgive and be forgiven, to cherish all the love that has walked in and out of my life. The Dissect series has not only furthered my appreciation of Blonde, but also Frank Ocean as a whole. Thank you, Cole. I'm no longer living a blonded life. I'm futura free now. Godspeed.
Hi, Cole. My name is Kiefer Birch. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Since it came out, Blonde has had me revisiting it again and again, proving to be timeless to me. It's uncanny how close Blonde is with my feelings, hardships, and joys as a young adult. Thank you for helping me get closer to this album that I truly love. Frank inspires me, and I can't wait to listen to a generation of musicians also inspired by Frank.
Hi, I'm James from New Paltz, New York, and Blonde is my favorite album of all time. For me, it's something that has really transcended the sum of its parts, and it triggers some kind of emotional reaction within me that no other music I can think of has to this date. I think the incredible thing about this season of Dissect is that it's allowed me to fully understand and appreciate a work of art I already loved and just taken my enjoyment of it to the next level. From now on, anytime I listen to Skyline 2, I'll hear those faint drums in the background right away, or the 6/8 time in Pink and White, or the way the guitar riff in Nights is distorted. I just now have a vast wealth of information about this album. Even if they're just tiny details in production or tidbits on what references mean or who helped Frank do this, they all just come together to enhance my connection to this album to such a level that it just wasn't before, and I owe that all to you, Cole, and I'm sure many listeners can agree with me on this, so thank you.
My name is Grace from Cincinnati, and my biggest takeaway from Frank Ocean, Channel Orange, Blonde is that intense feeling of nostalgia. You know, like deep down in your chest, the kind that aches for summer, the people you love, a certain moment, and simultaneously aches from a heartbreak and loss. And what he does is capture that feeling. You can't even put into words, and he gives it to you in chords and lyrics. And you're just like, this is it. This is exactly it.
My name is Josh and I'm from Oxnard, California. Well, I just wanted to come up here and say thank you to Frank Ocean himself for creating Blonde, because this album has literally gotten me through some rough times in my life, and I have such an emotional attachment to it. And also, thank you, Cole, for this wonderful podcast that has helped me gain a new perspective on how I view Blonde.
Hey, this is Miles from Atlanta. Blonde is my favorite album of all time, and while Twisted Fantasy by Kanye, Currents by Tame Impala, and 22 Million by Bon Iver give the record a run for its money as my favorite, there is no replacing what Blonde means to me. Blonde means that I can run away from the struggles of life and listen to Frank's story. Blonde represents lost summers and nostalgic memories that I will always hold deep in my heart. Blonde represents the unrequited love that I may have felt early in my years on this planet. Blonde represents the future that I will come to experience in my life, myself, and with those around me. Blonde represents for me that life is short and that we should be thankful for what we have, because we only have one shot at it, and we should aim high and try as best as we can to make ourselves happy. Thank you, Frank.
When this album came out, I was going through my first breakup. I was in love, but things fell apart. We were long distance, and I listened to Self-Control wishing that our time was right. She began dating someone soon after. I was crushed. I lost all my self-control. When I thought of that relationship, my good memories were blocked. But time has passed since then. I've fallen in love and been heartbroken all over. It wasn't until I looked at this relationship through the lens of my entire life that I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't angry. I can access those memories again, and I care about her, just not in the same way. I've kept a place in my heart without knowing it, and I will forever.
Hello, my name is Jenny, and I am from San Diego, California. First of all, I would like to thank you, Cole, for all of the hard work you have put into creating Dissect. Blonde is an album I hold near and dear to my heart, and probably one that stays listed under my heavy rotation on Spotify. I don't know how many times I have caught myself tearing up to this album, which brings me to my biggest takeaway. Frank is able to convey such powerful emotions through his music, and I would like to thank him for being such an amazing, talented musical genius who has mastered his craft.
Frank Ocean is a musician unlike anyone else out there. To me, Frank's music has always made me feel at home, and it's almost hard to imagine a world without it. When I first listened to Channel Orange, I couldn't help but wish I'd discovered the record sooner, but I was so grateful to have it then and there. Channel Orange is an album that my friends and I can always sing along to. After the long wait, when Blonde finally dropped, I felt like I was missing something. The album was so different. I had a few songs I frequently jammed to, namely Self-Control, but I wasn't in love with every track like I was with Channel Orange. Thanks to Dissect, I have a true appreciation for Blonde, and I'm finally able to fully appreciate every song, and Frank as an artist. The album's lyrics are heavy, I'm looking at you, White Ferrari, but necessary as they have allowed me to be introspective of my own life. Thank you, Frank.
Hey Dissectors, my name is Payman from Portland, Oregon, and Frank Ocean's Blonde changed my life. 2 years ago, I was living in Texas going through very bad depression, and music was the only thing helping me. I still remember the night me and my friends stayed up watching the endless live stream and holding each other crying. Little be known that the next day, my now favorite album of all time would be released. Blonde takes me into a whole nother world every listen and has changed who I am. Songs like Nights describe evening summertime drives with friends, and Siegfried displays the human emotion of existentialism and wonder into a sonic landscape. I don't know what Frank will do next, but I want him to take as much time as he needs to master his craft.
My name is Julius, and I am from Medford, Oregon. Frank Ocean gave us a gift, and it finally made sense why we waited 4 years for the release of his sophomore album. Lyrically, he abandons conventional song structures and essentially opts for minimal production. But every change in pitch, sound effect, chord progression has a purpose. With flawless execution, he embodies the exact emotions he's experienced and unintentionally pushes us to reflect on our own past memories.
Hey, my name's Jelani from Philadelphia, and Blonde is my favorite album of all time because the sound of it just takes me to a different place. Like, it takes me back to a time where I wasn't even alive. It takes me back to a time where I wasn't even there. Like, it makes me reminisce over thoughts that I had never had. And I think that's pretty beautiful.
My name is Diva, and I'm from New York. I remember the feeling of waiting every day for Frank to drop something, to give us any sign that he was living. And then the Enigma himself blessed us with Blonde. My first listen was so heart-wrenchingly beautiful. It gave me goosebumps, it made me cry, it made my heart hurt in a good way. And it is the only album out there where no matter how many times I listen, it ignites in me those same feelings as if it's my first time hearing it. And if disappearing for 4 years meant Frank giving us the ethereal masterpiece that is Blonde, then I can only imagine what he's going to do next.
Hey Cole, this is Matt from Chicago. This season of Dissect made me realize that music has the ability to put me in anybody's shoes, whether they're rich, poor, happy, depressed, loved, or lonely. It made me realize that I love listening to music for the sense of empathy it gives me. You taught me that music is supposed to inspire. It makes me question, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what is an album worth? Thanks for the hard work, Cole. I'd do anything to contribute. You're the man, and good luck with the baby.
Hello, my name is Mohammed from Toronto, Canada. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you, Cole, for creating and recording such a great podcast for so many listeners who want to know more behind the music. After listening to the second season on Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, finding out about Frank Ocean being the next feature artist was amazing. Anyone who had listened to Frank Ocean would know that the artist's music is very complex, well thought out, and in some cases mystical. My biggest takeaway from Season 3 includes the season introduction. The backstory behind how Nostalgia Ultra came to be made me appreciate the importance of following your dreams. Life is so full of distractions and excuses, and through many, Frank was able to complete this early project to show everyone what he was capable of. Great work always takes time, and the anticipation leading up to the release of Blonde may have frustrated his fans, but the wait was unanimously accepted once you had your first listen.
It was difficult to imagine an album that could top Channel Orange, and I wasn't sure what I wanted the follow-up to be. When Blonde was released, it took a while for it to sink in, but I think all of the best stuff does.
It redefined Frank Ocean for me. Suddenly it wasn't something that could be better or worse, and I don't think the goal here is to please in any way. It's just about having something to express, needing more than words to say it, and then you get music. Thanks from Callum in Copenhagen.
Hi, my name is Hector, and I'm from Austin, Texas. As I progressed through my final year of high school, my emotions, primarily in connection to my relationships, has had its highs and its lows. Blonde to me is a piece of art that connects me to Frank, a man who encapsulates perfectly those who have endured similar situations with the same emotions as me. He details the pain of loving others, hurting when others are hurt, joyous when others are happy, and despair once they're gone. My greatest fear is sharing so many intimate moments with others and then having those close to you vanish. It's painful to see those you love slowly disappear from your life and to have all these dynamic emotions you shared with one another simply diminish themselves into memories that slowly fade away. However, as painful the experience, those moments of unfiltered emotion remind us of what makes us human, the love and hate we grow towards others.
Hey Cole and everyone listening to the podcast. I'm Aaron from Texas, and a few hours ago today I ended a relationship that lasted a few months. I really cared for my partner, and I know they did too. And both Blonde and this season of Dissect were great supplements to my relationship. White Ferrari and Self-Control take on new meanings now that my relationship has ended. But I'm not necessarily sad about that. I'm glad to have experienced life with my partner. I'm sort of an emotional wreck right now, but I love the podcast, and I hope people can appreciate Frank's storytelling and the work put into this podcast.
My name is Corey Burkwald. I go to school in Houghton, Michigan. And the most prominent moment of this season for me is the 3 chords of the organ's intro in Forrest Gump. It reminds me of the introduction to a benediction of a church service. This is the time at the end of a service where you're invited to stand, to rise and rejoice, the same way that Frank is rejoicing in his newfound self-understanding and love after the reflection of his vulnerability in the previous 2 songs.
Hey Cole, it's Heather here from Chicago. Around the time that Blonde was released, I lost a close friend of mine. I immediately connected this album with depression, grief, and just chronic despair, and I can't listen to this album today without thinking of him for at least a second. And listening to it daily from then on for the past couple of years has really helped me dig a little bit deeper into realizing the meaning of life, and it's helped me to heal and forgive, and I now feel just betterment and solace and relief and comfort in the fact that my feelings just aren't unique, and there are words and music and keys and everything to just kind of convey exactly what I feel in every moment of that sadness and in every moment of that happiness.
Hey everyone, this is Joey from Chicago. Frank's open letter starts with the line, "Whoever you are, wherever you are, I'm starting to think we're a lot alike." This represents my main takeaway from this season. It makes me think of the similarities I have with the community of Frank Ocean and Dissect listeners. Frank's music has evolved with me over time, and I expect that this is true for many of us. So I want to sincerely thank Frank, which I believe is a shared sentiment from this community. And let me echo that gratitude to Cole as well. Your analysis allows us to better understand and appreciate all the effort put in by the artists we love. We all really are a lot alike.
My name is Rowan. I'm from Michigan, and I listened to Blonde for the first time the first day it came out in the top of an RV on the way home from a bluegrass festival up north in Michigan. And I'll never forget the way it made me feel. The thing with Blonde is it makes me excited to live my life and feel new feelings and meet new people. And it makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time on earth. And it just gives me a much brighter outlook on life. And that's a good thing to have.
Howdy Dissect. My name is Christian from Southern California. In my mind, nostalgia is a word that perfectly describes Blonde. Throughout Frank's album, I can find a time in my life where I felt the same emotions he vividly conveys. Tracks such as Self-Control and White Ferrari have resonated with me most in detailing the feelings surrounding lost love. Through these songs, Frank reminds us of the beauty beneath failed relationships that people forget to appreciate. He shows that human emotions, the good and ugly, are real and true. Thank you, Frank, for creating the most genuine piece of art, Blonde.
My name's Alex, I'm from Carmel, Oklahoma, and to me, Blonde is when you find yourself caught up in emotional fits you never expected to live through growing up. Times where you could feel completely broken and surrounded by people with similar but the exact opposite emotional patterns. Innocence being lost, discovering your deepest insecurities and overthought things, losing self-control. A chest-aching feeling of being truly connected to someone or multiple people in this endless universe. So caught up in emotion and passion that reality of an end doesn't even seem to hit you. The fear of losing friends, and distrust forming because you can't control it. Frank Ocean does more than create music. He presents reality through emotions that everyone can relate to, even in different situations. He captures acceptance of what it's like to grow and become your true self.
Hey Cole, longtime fan Joe from Chicago here. Just wanted to send out my thanks for another great season of analysis and the honest vulnerability throughout. That really helped me get into the album more since I was skeptical at first about changing genres this season. But after hearing about yours and other listeners' experiences, it really helped me open up just in time for a white Ferrari to hit me. I had recently graduated college and I have been conflicted if I should abandon norms and go out and live in the world. Hearing Frank have the strength to do so inspired me, and hope I can go out and find that strength too. Keep an open mind, Dissect listeners, and I can't wait for next season to once again blow my mind.
Hey, this is Paula Jean from El Sereno, California, and Blonde is one of my most favorite albums. And I gotta say, Cole, you killed it with this one. Before this podcast, I was already feeling like I was connecting with the album, seeing myself through self-control and nights, but when you went over it and those details, I was just falling in love with the album even more. And I gotta thank you for that, because no one does it like you. And thank you, Frank Ocean, just for everything ever.
My name is Terry, and I'm from Atlanta. I remember downloading Blonde the day that it was released, not really understanding the hype behind it all, but I knew that it was a big deal. So I gave it a listen, and without the knowledge of why it was such an anticipated album, I instantly fell in love with the music in every song. Over the past 2 years, I've really learned so much about Frank and his writing and music style, and I've really come to appreciate his music significantly more than I used to. Listening to this season of Dissect has taught me so much about Frank and the composition of his songs. Every time I listen to Dissect, I feel like I'm listening to Blonde for the first time all over again, but with a new perspective.
Blonde was the soundtrack for the first time I fell in love. I had wrongly dismissed it as the lesser of Frank's works and would have continued to if it hadn't been this boy's favorite album. He played it for me in full one evening in his car in a moment so intimate, so full of love. We were both robbed of words, and all I could do was kiss him and cry. We separated around the time the season of Dissect started, and it has helped us both through that very dark period. We tried recently to reconnect, but it didn't work. He could not let go of the past, preferring instead to let go of me. The last time we spoke, we were both aware of the finality of the situation. I wanted that final conversation to be loving, but instead was met with humiliating cruelty. But if you and Frank have taught me anything, it is that I define my own experiences. So this is my version of the open letter, eulogizing the most transformative experience of my life so far.
Hi Cole, Mariana here from La Jolla, California, originally the DMV. My husband put me onto your podcast after season 1 and I fell in love. So from audiophiles everywhere, thank you. Frank Ocean's Blonde and your analysis of it has left me with an empowering ability to manipulate memories. Not to rewrite them, just letting the negative emotions go despite being hurt. It's just healthier this way. And the way things happen today, it's really helpful. Oh, and congratulations, Spotify is a good home for Dissect. Can't wait for season 4.
This is Cole from Sacramento, California. I began this season a casual fan of Frank Ocean, but I was certainly not as passionate about his music as I was with Kendrick Lamar or Kanye West, the focus of seasons 1 and 2. Frank Ocean rose to prominence while I was still in college, during which time I only listened to classical music. When I graduated and began to explore contemporary music again, Frank was in the midst of his 4-year disappearance, so I never really heard his name enough to check him out. It wasn't until I received an overwhelming amount of requests to dissect Frank that I gave his music an intense listen. Over the course of this season, I've come to deeply admire and appreciate not only Frank's music, but his disposition. With the independent release of Nostalgia Ultra, Frank took fate by the throat, refusing to let a neglectful label control his artistic destiny. With Channel Orange and the Open Letter, Frank refused to let society and cultural norms dictate his self-expression. In the years after Channel Orange, Frank fled from the spotlight and traveled the world, refusing to let fame and celebrity control his happiness. With Endless and Blonde, Frank didn't play it safe. He didn't succumb to the pressures of attempting to create another Channel Orange. He took an artistic leap of faith, experimenting rather than duplicating, refusing to let expectations dictate his artistic vision. He forever remains true to himself, a great role model in an increasingly complex and changing world, a world in which one can feel insurmountable pressures to conform, to to compare your life with the perceived but most often falsely glorified lives of others. But I have to say my biggest takeaway from Frank Ocean's Blonde was his harmonization of strength and vulnerability, of masculine and feminine. I suppose I felt these two things existed in us like those two-sided balance scales, that when one side goes up, the other side comes down. But through Frank Ocean's music and the study of his life, I've realized that these things exist in us in equal parts, that they're independent but inseparable from one another, and that because we might show emotion doesn't make us weak, that because we show strength doesn't make us domineering. We can be and are both simultaneously. The two beautifully coexist within us all, and we shouldn't cultivate one over the other. We're vulnerable because we're strong, and we're strong because we're vulnerable. This duality is what Frank Ocean taught me this season, and for that, I'm forever grateful. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll talk to you next season.